Hello! Hello. Welcome to the very first episode of the Transatlantic Chinwag. Oh, it sounds better now. I was thinking, I've been thinking about the name a lot, and I'm really not sure. And we've floated a lot of names. I say we, me and the other half have floated a lot of names in the past few weeks. The Transatlantic Tribune, the Intercontinental Podcast, Brits Abroad, Truby Talk, which I quite liked as well, but I don't plan on doing this on my own forever, which I'll come on to talk about at some point. So what the hell am I doing? Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ben. I lived in Staffordshire in the United Kingdom for 28 years, and then probably just under 5 years ago, I had a crazy opportunity come my way through my work to move to the United States. Chicago, to be exact. Lived there for around 4 years, 4.5 years maybe. Moved a week before the global pandemic. A lot of stories there that I'm sure I'll talk about, but a lot of fantastic memories too. Chicago was somewhat the making of me in some ways. I've had an absolutely incredible experience there. But more recently, in May of this year, 2024, moved to Southern California. I'm loving it. It's fantastic. It's everything that I hoped it would be. The weather is phenomenal. I've got a lot of knee and back problems, and the weather has been great for that too. The way of life, just look, I'm in love with the whole thing, and I'm sure I'll talk about that in more detail at some point in the future. But I guess where I'm going with that is, having moved here, the time difference to home, the UK, is 8 hours. It was 6 in Chicago, which was hard enough, but now it's a really long flipping time. And on top of that, I don't know anybody here. It's just me and the other half, Kelly. That is it, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is I've got a little bit more time on my hands when it comes to the evenings. And also, I'm quite creative, and I think my creative side has taken a real backseat since I moved to America, really. I used to be in a band. I was a singer, played guitar, piano. We would do pubs primarily. We'd do the odd wedding as well, and I loved it. It was fantastic. But since I moved to the States, and particularly after the first couple of years after we got through the pandemic, I began to travel a lot for work, which has been fantastic. It's been one of the best adventures, or probably the best adventure of my life. So many places that I've seen. So feeling very fortunate about that. But because of that, there's not really been time to devote to some of my creative pursuits. I've not been able to lock down like a band rehearsal or even meet people to jam with, other than the odd party. On these plane journeys, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I could do that. Maybe I can't. We'll find out. I'm not sure if this is ever going to see the light of day. But I thought, you know what? Let's give it a go. And I'm hoping, as I said at the start, to introduce a friend of mine, one of my other half's best friends. She's a real character. She's fantastic, to the podcast next time around, if I don't scare her off with this one, to hopefully have that true transatlantic chinwag experience. So someone being in the UK, someone being in the US. Me, having lived in both countries now, probably got a little bit of a unique perspective, which I'd like to talk about, which will be fun. So what am I going to talk about? So, probably a lot of things I would suggest. Politics, probably a little bit of politics, I'm going to say. I studied international relations and history at university. Thought I was going to have a career in politics at one point and decided against it. Probably a really good decision. But yeah, I'll probably talk about that. Obviously, we had the presidential election here recently with Donald Trump getting re-elected. Then in the UK, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party got re-elected this year. So probably lots to talk about there, which will be interesting maybe for some. And then I'm probably going to talk about life in general, probably a little bit of death, hopefully not too much of that. But I'm a huge Aston Villa fan, and I thought about doing a podcast devoted to Aston Villa, such as my love for them. But to be honest with you, there's quite a few of them out there, and I don't want to do something that's very samey. I want this to be unique, I guess, and I wouldn't want to do anything that didn't really do Villa justice. So probably not going to do that, but I probably will talk about Villa and sport at some time. And other sports, I mean, I love boxing. I love the big fights. I'll probably talk about that. The NFL I've started to get into, which I'll probably talk about a little bit. aliens. Those of you who know me well, who are listening, if anyone's listening, that is, it doesn't take too long for me to start talking about UAP, or formerly known as UFOs. And why am I doing that? Blame the pandemic. Blame the flipping the pandemic. Flipping a year going down the rabbit hole on YouTube and many different podcasts. I'm not necessarily saying I believe in aliens. Maybe I am. What I am saying and what I'm convinced of is that the US government, other governments have been concealing information to the public of whether it's otherworldly technology or just the technology. It could be China, it could be Russia, I don't know where it's from, but I'm convinced there is a technology out there that we're witnessing in these craft that are doing things that we just cannot do. Go from 80,000 feet to 0 feet, below the water, up and down. Pilots are seeing them. Anyway, see, look, I've already got talking about it. I've already got carried away already. I'm probably going to talk about that at some point in the future. And yeah, look, a lot of other things. But yeah, what I thought we'd talk about today is what I'm going to call Americanisms versus Britishisms. What do I mean by that? Hopefully, if I give an example, it'll kind of make sense. I'm hoping to keep a bit of a running score. I'm not going to cover them all off in one go. There's so many, obviously. But I think I've got a bit of a unique situation where, obviously, I lived in the UK all my life, and then I've spent the last 5 years in the States. So people are going to think I'm probably going to be biased, and there's probably going to be... Well, it's impossible not to be biased with some of this. What I am going to say is that the way I'm countering my UK bias, all those extra years... I'm living in the States right now, and I want the States to win. Why wouldn't I want the States to have the best things? Because I'm living here. So that's how I've rationalised it in my brain. But anyway, so the first one that I'm going to talk about, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean then, is Fahrenheit versus Celsius. So, just taking a sip of my drink there. Hopefully I can edit that out if that's possible. So, Fahrenheit versus Celsius, I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible, even though I've clearly made up my mind, as you can probably tell from my face, if any of you can see me. Fahrenheit, as I understand it, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is freezing, where water turns into ice. I've educated you all. Wow. And then for boiling, where water boils, that is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. 32 and 212. Right? I just think that is highly irregular. Celsius is 0 and 100. In my head, that makes a lot more sense. I've definitely got a bias there from growing up and being used to it. But it's just 32 and 212. Like, how do you teach that in school? Like, 1 and 1 is 2. No, it's 409. Like, what the hell? Anyway, sorry. So where am I going with this? So I'm told Fahrenheit is actually more accurate in terms of degrees of accuracy. So if you can imagine, like, 31 degrees Celsius versus 32 degrees Celsius, that's just hot. To me, that's just hot and sweaty. But if you're a chemist, if you're a scientist, maybe that's really useful, because maybe there's certain boiling points of different elements or whatever. I've got no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But I guess where I'm going with it is it could be really, really useful. But for the everyday person, 212, 32, for me, that's just wacky. It really is wacky. And I think, and this is a more generalised point, and I'm hopefully find examples on this podcast throughout time. I think all countries, the UK do it an awful lot, have certain things that they do that they cling to as being part of their national identity. It's like, to be American is to flipping have Fahrenheit. I'm like, no, I don't think you need to hang your hat on that. There's so many better things that you can hang your hat on. I think you've got to bite the bullet here. 0 to 100 really makes sense on this one, so I think Celsius has to win. Right? Yeah, so there you go. I think it just... now, you know what? I have got used to saying 70 and sunny, but I've had to adapt to say it. But trying to do the conversion, I don't know, double it, minus 32, or divide... I don't even know what it is, so something to do with the number 32, and not because 32 is flipping 0 degrees Celsius. I don't know. Oh no, it might be 27. Oh god, I'm totally cocking this up now. Anyway, Celsius wins 1-0. It's not even just the UK, is it? 1-0 the rest of the world. The one point I didn't make, actually, and I really wanted to make, is think of all the inefficiencies of having two different measures for temperature. Think of all the thermometers. It's got C and F on it. Like, you could just have the C. You can just get rid of the F. Everyone could be on the same thing. All the devices that need programming, all the computers, all the cars, all the thermometers, the actual thermometers that get made, they could all just be in Celsius. There has to be a cost saving there, even if there's an initial cost up front to make the change. Celsius wins 1-0 to Britain. Great Britain, the United Kingdom, rest of the world as well, whatever you want to call it. All right, so the next logical one for me probably makes sense to talk about the metric system versus the other system. And I don't mean the other system in a biased way. I don't actually know what that system's called. You've got, in the US, what have we got? So we've got inches, which is 2.5 centimeters, right? You've got feet, which is 12 inches or 13. I want to go with 12 inches. And you've got yards. I don't even know what yards mean. And then they still say meters. When they're doing the Olympics and things like that, I'm sure they say the 100-meter sprint, they get on board with it. There is the 60-yard and 40-yard dash. I've heard of that in the NFL, and I've seen it on TV, I think, with the athletics. Then you've got miles. Now, miles is also illogical, right? So, metric system for me, kind of similar to Celsius, 0 and 100. You got your millimeters, your centimeters, your meters, your kilometers. It makes a hell of a lot of sense. But going back to this national identity feeling, it's not national identity, it's the wrong term, but this feeling of attachment, I love saying miles. How far was that? Oh, yeah, I drove 50 miles today. Oh, you know, I love saying it. Or I'd say, oh, we're going on a 3-mile walk. I'd rarely say that. Just to clarify, it's more likely the missus saying that she's going on a 3 or a 5-mile run. But even so, sometimes she'll say, oh, I've just done a 5K. But then you'll say 5 miles if it sounds better. Do you know, there's something about saying miles that makes me attached. And we say miles in the States too. I think Europe is kilometers everywhere. But if you're going to use millimeters, centimeters, meters, which I think make way more sense than getting confused between feet and yards and meters, inches, I think that is an absolute no-brainer. But here's my radical solution. So we switch, and we do switch to kilometers, as painful as that will be for a generation. If you're born with it, I really don't think you'll care. But for those who are alive right now, and being as we're going to live a lot longer, let's make a mile be 1,000 meters, a kilometer. So they're the same thing. So if you say a mile or a kilometer, it's the same. Just change it. No one needs to measure in a mile, which is, I don't know what it is. It's like 1,600 meters, something like that. But that in the short term could help people adjust to it. So you can make a mistake, or you can still feel like you're saying miles, but it just means 1,000, right? It's probably really, really stupid, but that's how I'm thinking about it in my head. And then eventually we'll probably stop saying miles. Or you know what? Or you could have millimeter, centimeter, meters, miles. Begins with M. Meters, miles. I don't know. Anyway, so I think the metric system wins. And if that means I have to lose miles, I think it's probably for the betterment of humanity. I think it is. I think it's got to go, as much as it'll be painful, but I've got my crossover solution, as I said. So I think that is... I can't even say it's 2-0 the rest of the world, but I think America and the UK kind of both lose that one. And sorry if anyone can hear my phone whistling. But anyway, I think the UK wins on the whole centimetres, metres, millimetres. All of that wins versus inches. Even though inches and yards and feet, if anyone... So, see, I'm going around in circles. Someone asked me how tall I am. I'm 6 foot. Why the hell? Because I think it's because it's short and easy to say. I'm 1.2 metres or 1.4 metres. I don't know how tall I am. 1.6 metres. 1.65 metres, is it? No, 1.85 meters, is that 6 feet? I don't even know. We can see the amount of confusion it's causing me. We need one truth, one source of truth for the numbers. Oh my God, I sound like I'm at work. Right. So, metric system. Gonna bite the bullet. Oh God, I could go on forever. Right, let's change topic. What else did I have down here? Driving. All right, driving. So, driving on the left hand side of the road versus the right hand side of the road. That's one thing that's different. Driving on the right hand side of the road in the States, I think, on the left in the UK. And then you've got the steering wheel. Steering wheel's on the other side as well, which is very strange. Was very strange getting used to. Then you've got traffic lights versus roundabouts, even though you've got traffic lights in the UK, there's not really many roundabouts in the US. I'll start with roundabouts, because although they can be a little bit terrifying when you're learning to drive, there's no roundabouts in the US. I've maybe seen 5 in the 5 years I've been here. It's like, ooh, one a year. It's like flipping. It's a treat when you see one, but they're in the most stupid places as well. Where I think roundabouts would be great adopted here would be like in rural America, or when you're traveling from like the west coast to the east coast and you're just driving through the flipping desert and fields of nothingness, and then you're going 70 mile an hour, kilometer. Yeah, anyway, you with me? You do that, and there's nothing coming, but you have to stop because it's an automated traffic light. What a waste of everyone's time. Stick a big fat roundabout there and just keep the damn thing moving. So I think roundabouts win. What I will say for big city driving, it's not good for someone with a bad knee like me, but it was so easy. It was just straight roads in Chicago, and it was stop, start, stop, start, which was annoying, but it was just so easy to get to where you wanted to get to. It was very tricky to get lost. In the UK, every road is winding. The long and winding road. Couldn't resist. That's one of my favourite songs by the Beatles. If ever I say winding, that comes out. So roundabouts win for the UK. I think the side of the road that the US drives on, I think it's the right way. I don't want to draw that conclusion just yet. One of the positives from driving in the US is you can turn right on red. It's also the weirdest thing, and it took a long time to get used to. And there's certain ones that you can't. If there's a sign, even if it's a tiny sign that says "Don't turn on red," you can get fined. That's the only time I've ever got a ticket in my entire life, which I was pretty pissed about. However, turning right on red is genius. Again, that combats a little bit of the lack of roundabout, but it doesn't in those rural areas. Just flipping stick them in, get it done. All right. I think the rest of the world, apart from the UK and Ireland, all drive on one side of the road. So you've got factories producing cars for the UK and Ireland that's different to everywhere else. Again, it just reeks of inefficiency. Sadly, I think we just got to bite the bullet and get it done. Now, the infrastructure change probably costs a lot. Although all you're doing is changing signs, right? Obviously, the cars will have to change as well. It's going to cost a lot up front, but I just think it's got to happen. Again, there's no pride in me that we drive on a different side of the road in the UK. We just got to get over it. It's a generational thing. If I'd have been brought up driving the way that I drive now in the States, I wouldn't think twice. So we just need to get on board with the planet's flipping way of doing things. We're not alone in the universe, I don't think. No, I won't go down that rabbit hole. But I think we just got to start acting like a planet. Do more things that make sense everywhere. So I think, what have we concluded so far then? Celsius, the metric system, the US way of driving, sprinkled in a few roundabouts. I think that makes sense. I'm going to do plugs next. Plugs. I didn't plan to talk about plugs, but it's just come to my brain. So, I wonder if I've got... Yes. Oh, this is so sad. I didn't plan to talk about it, but I've got a prop. Those of you who are just listening aren't going to be able to see this. Apologies, but you'll know what I mean. So in the UK, you have a 3-pronged plug, right? God, say that fast. 3-pronged plug. 3-pronged plug. There we go. Right. God, I'm crazy. I'm a little bit delirious today. That's a whole other story. I've been ill for like a week, so I feel like this is my day getting back on the saddle. Right, three-pronged plug grabs the wall really well. This is not a great example of a UK plug because it's a lot wider here and it like covers two sockets, right? But a three-pronged plug does not move. USA plug, on the other hand, these two little things, I like how small and compact it is. And for little things like a phone charger, I get it. It's cool. It's all right. But depending on like what socket, and I can't show you. I'll have to. I don't know how I could even visualize this, but you put this in the wall in the US, and it can wiggle and fall out, or it can lean, like it goes in and then falls backward, depending on the quality of the socket, or depending on how old the socket is as well. And it's just so frustrating. And then if you've got a hairdryer, it is like this big, and it covers two holes, and it's ridiculous. Like, so, I'm sure it's to do with voltage and everything else. I think we should all be on the same voltage, but just so I think if the voltage is lower in the US, maybe that uses less electricity. I'm not sure. Let's get on that. Whoever's got the lowest voltage, let's do the best thing for the planet or whatever else. Fine, but three-pronged over prong. Oh my god, three-pronged over the two-pronged all day. I've had some fierce debates about this at work. That everyone thinks I'm mad that I need this big monstrous three-pronged monstrosity, but it grips the wall and it's not that much bigger than the two-prong plug, but anything that has a two-prong plug that requires a lot of power covers up two holes, and it's flipping stupid. So I think I'm going with the three-prong plug. That three-prong plug, maybe that's what this episode should be called, the three-pronged plug. I said it that many times I've lost what I was talking about. I'm probably biased. I'm going with that. I think the UK needs to win on that. But whatever we do, flipping heck, we should all be on the same flipping plug. We should all make the same thing. Just like with the chargers, don't be down the phone charger, USB-C, USB-A, B, C, D, E. I don't know, all these weird flipping wires. I just want one wire that charges everything, or better yet, just wireless. All right, so everyone's going to be on the same plug. I think the UK wins that one. All right, let's do beer. Now, I've got two sides to this argument. You've got draft beer, and you've got bottled and canned beer. I'm a draft beer guy, or I always have been, living in the UK. There's nothing better than a carbonated lager. Lager's my drink. Lager's my go-to, which you just call beer here. The fizz that you can see rising up in the glass, the foam on the top, getting a little bit on your nose and having to wipe it off. The carbonation, everything about it, I absolutely love it. And that just doesn't really exist in the US. So it sounds like I'm going to give a big fat win to the UK here, but it's polar opposite. Well, not the polar opposite. It's different when it comes to bottles and cans. But on draft beer, I think there's something with the taps. So I'm told, having had multiple discussions about my frustrations with beer, there's something with the taps that the pubs just either don't maintain them, don't look after them, don't know how, don't care because people buy it anyway. I'm not really sure what it is. But because of that, the beer is just, it looks flat, but it has all the gas in it, but it's just flat and it's just within the drink, and it just makes you feel bloated even after one drink. It's disappointing. So much so when I moved and I tried beer and I was like, oh crap. I started drinking the Belgian beer, Blue Moon. It's not even a beer. It's a blonde ale, something like that. Anyway, I started drinking that to ease my way in. Now I'm used to the beer and it's fine, but I'd prefer it out of a bottle and a can in the States, which brings me on to my next point. The amount of microbreweries in the US is phenomenal. Having moved to Southern California, I went to Catalina Island, not for the wine mixer. The wine mixer, baby. We went to the beer festival, Brew Fest at Catalina Island a couple of months ago. It must have been 24 breweries. We walked around, and my best friend had come over with his partner from the UK, and they gave us a piece of paper that had like 30 odd beers and you had to give a tick to the one that was going to win best beer for the day. Well, I took this as a judging competition, and I just scored every single one and wrote commentary on the whole damn thing. It was a very merry day. It was one of the best days. I had such a great time. But it just made me realise that the amount of microbrews and the different types of flavours that you can create with beer in cans and bottles was fantastic. Now, some of these were out of kegs, but some of them were cans as well. Loved it, absolutely love it, and I think because of that choice and variety, I think the US wins hands down on beer when it comes out of a can or out of a bottle. Draft beer, UK for me is winning hands down. But I don't know if this comes back to what you've been brought up with. And I don't know. I always thought, oh God, I should just start a company either looking after like beer taps for pubs. They'll make a fortune. Like I could be the beer savior. But I don't think people care. Beer's beer here and they drink it. So you don't know what you haven't had. And most people have, who are American haven't actually left the US. So they're used to it. So they may not actually like it. And this is where I go to with the next one. Chocolate. I'm going to have to... I've totally lost track of the score, by the way. I'm going to have to tally these up and stick it somewhere in an episode in the future for sure. But I'm going to go with chocolate. For me, and I've had a lot of colleagues agree with me that the taste of European chocolate is by far superior to the US. Unless you want like super premium stuff, then it gets a little bit closer. But Hershey's, and I'm not picking on the brand, fantastic brand. They're great on s'mores. Absolutely love s'mores. The UK should adopt s'mores. US wins hands down. S'mores, they get a point. However, Hershey's just tastes like ass, man. For me, just like I don't know what it is within the taste, but so I'm told, because I've had this discussion after many a beer as well with people since I've been here. I think, and someone probably needs to correct me because this may be a made up story that someone told me, but as I understand it, Hershey's and American chocolate tastes the way it tastes because it needed a higher melting point. So I work in the food industry, and I'm sure I'll come on to that at some point in the future. I work in sales. I sell food products in the US. That's why I'm here. So I understand a little bit about I understand a little bit about the logistics. Gosh, that's a tongue twister as well. But if you're in Florida, for example, and it's really humid and hot, or Texas in the summer, but then you travel a bit further north, Chicago, let's say, and it's having a cold day, or I'm not the best at geography, but basically there's different temperatures in different parts of the country, and so Beaner's chocolate would be ambient. It wouldn't be chilled. It wouldn't be in a freezer when it's been drove from A to B. It was melting. So they had to put something within the ingredient, I don't know what that is, a sweetener or whatever, to stop it from melting so that it could be transported, because no one wants melted and reformed chocolate. Sucks. I've done that plenty of times with Cadbury's and it breaks my heart. Anyway, so that's why it tastes the way it tastes. But again, everybody is used to it. So it's really polarizing. Some people in the US, I've gave them the European chocolate and they're like, oh my God, this is incredible. How do I get my hands on this? I'm like, well, don't go to the grocery store and buy Cadbury's because that's licensed to Hershey and it still doesn't taste great. So anyway, I guess where I'm going with that is I don't know if I could start a chocolate company here. And I don't know if it's the nature of the milk that's in the chocolate. I'm sure the cocoa or whatever it is itself is all from the same place. Maybe it's the milk that makes the difference, or it's just the way that it's made because of that recipe thing I was talking to you about. I don't know. I'd love to start a business here and start selling that chocolate because I think it'd be a game changer. But I'm also not convinced people would like that taste because they're so used to the taste that they've always known. But my counter to that is the industry that I work in. I sell a European butter and cheese in the US. And once someone tries it, I sound like a salesman now, it's going to be cringy. But as soon as someone tries it, as far as I'm aware, all the data indicates they don't go back. All we need to do is to get them to try it. Being as the product is grass-fed, the beta-carotene from the grass flows through into the product. That's what makes the butter golden, and it tastes great, versus domestic butter, which isn't. It's grain-fed, and they're in sheds, and they're not outdoor all the time, all this kind of stuff. They're in mass herds versus small herds, all this stuff. It has a bearing on the taste, and when people try it, they never go back. I think that can happen too with chocolate, but chocolate, maybe it's just different, but people love Hershey's here. It's the number one brand by far. So anyway, there you go. I think for me, European chocolate, hands down, has to win. I'm yet to try US chocolate. That's blown my mind, which is really sad. So I do a lot of importing of chocolate, whether it's in my suitcase, whether it's people coming to visit, whether it's people from work flying over. They get me a doggy bag full of stuff. And it's doggy bag? Did we say that in the US? I'm going to have to ask someone. Someone let me know. We'll do American and British expressions, by the way, at some point, but I'm going to have to make notes on those because I can't talk them freehand. They just seem to happen naturally, and we, yeah, we end up rolling about it at work for sure. All right, I'll do one more and then I'm going to have to jump. Cake, US wins, hands down. Nothing Bunt Cakes is a brand in the US. A colleague of mine bought it me during my first couple of years in the US. I don't know how to describe it, but you should look it up. It's white chocolate raspberry. It's almost like a donut shape where it like arches in the middle, and there's this white creamy sexiness that just folds over in strips, and it's like the sweetest thing ever. I'm the biggest sweet tooth on the planet, hence why I can never seem to keep my weight down, other than the fact I can't exercise very much. But oh my god, this cake, the fluffiest, the richest, the sweetest, the sexiest I've ever had in my life. Cheesecake in the US, everyone thinks the Cheesecake Factory is just pretty standard here. When I say, oh, do you want to go Cheesecake Factory? They just think of it as a chain. No, it has the best cheesecake I've ever tried. There's so many flavours, it's phenomenal. Flavours, quality, taste, incredible. How do they get that so right and chocolate so wrong? Is it this melting point thing? Maybe I should look into that a little bit more. Nothing against UK cakes, but they've blown me away here. And I'm going to say the same with ice cream. Ice cream here, the amount of Ben and Jerry's flavours you can get here versus anywhere else, and loads of other ice creams. Just a bit. I've had the best ice cream in my life living in the States. So sorry, UK. I mean, Cornish ice cream is very good. I love a raspberry ripple ice cream as well. But I'm sorry, US wins that hands down. All right, I can go on and on and on, and I probably will revisit this with some more Americanisms versus Britishisms. But hopefully you enjoyed this. I have probably sounding a little bit scatterbrained today. I've had a bit of a food bug, so I've not been eating for 4 days straight. I feel like I'm coming out of it now, and I was like, right, let's get this recorded. I've done a couple of demo runs trying to get used to hearing my own voice in the headphones, but I really enjoyed it. It was fun for me anyway, and as I say, I'm looking to bring somebody on board to do this with. I realise I'm probably not nearly interesting enough to talk on my own on a podcast all the time. So, yeah, next time I'm hoping to introduce somebody, but we will see how that goes. Thank you very much for listening. If there's anyone who is listening, or in the future if you listen, it's the 25th of November. It's Thanksgiving week here in the States. I've got the week off. Bit weird being British and Thanksgiving, but you know what? I think it's a beautiful holiday. There's no gifts involved. It's just sitting down with the people you love and being thankful. What a wonderful thing. Why don't we do something like that in the UK? Anyway, it's been a pleasure. I will see you again soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.